This last and very brief PowerPoint speaks specifically to Alzheimer's disease. Your book does a nice job outlining Alzheimer's disease in terms of stages. And I think it's important because it helps you to understand how dementia progresses and also how to recognize it when you're assessing clients and setting goals and providing care for them. I think that you can easily apply these stages to most types of dementia. So I think it's good information that is worth taking a look at. So let's quickly go through these slides. So when you assess the client with Alzheimer's disease, your assessment is going to look the same as when we assessed our other clients. Important to try to pick out some of the risk factors that have been identified and that we've talked about. Age, I'm not sure that we talked about head trauma and seizure disorders. They very often predispose the client to Alzheimer's later in life. There are a couple things that clients can do to protect themselves or delay the onset of Alzheimer's, and that's participate in a regular cognitive stimulation and regular exercise. People with mild symptoms of Alzheimer's disease often seem healthy, but they're actually having trouble making sense of the world around them. It often takes time for us to realize that something is wrong because the early symptoms are often confused with changes that take place with normal aging. So, for example, earlier I said losing my keys or forgetting the right word that I want to use in a conversation. But symptoms and early signs of Alzheimer's disease can include difficulty learning and remembering new information, managing finances, a decreased interest in usual activities, a loss of energy, but they still are able to perform most activities such as driving a car, but they can get lost in familiar places. So the slide here says fleeting moments of total confusion that can seize a person who is otherwise entirely healthy and lucid. So I can give you an example of this book that I read, which is on the screen here, called Still Alice. I know that none of you have time to be reading for pleasure, but when you do, I would absolutely recommend this book. It's short, it's quick, it's a fabulous story. It is fiction, but it's a very good portrayal of someone who has early onset Alzheimer's. She's, I believe, in her late 40s, early 50s. She's a professor at Harvard, and she begins to develop the symptoms of early Alzheimer's. One of the first things that happened to her is she was a runner, and she was out jogging, and all of a sudden couldn't remember which way to go or how to get home. And this went on for a little bit of time, and then finally it resolved and she was able to get home, but it scared her, and that's what sent her on her way to the doctors to begin to look into this problem. So, good example, great book, maybe over the Christmas break, I don't know, guys. In the moderate or the middle stage of Alzheimer's disease, the damage to the brain is worsening, and it's spreading now, and it's spreading to areas that control language, reasoning, processing of sensory function, and thought. So in this stage, the signs and symptoms become more pronounced. We also see that behavioral problems begin to emerge in this stage. Signs and symptoms at this stage involve forgetting older facts, continually repeating stories in conversation or asking the same questions, even making up stories to fill in the gaps. We call this confabulation. May begin to have difficulty using things that were normally very routine, like the shower, and may begin to demonstrate restlessness, wandering, paranoia, or hallucinations. Also, hygiene and appearance may change in this stage, and difficulty sleeping. In this advanced stage of Alzheimer's disease, damage to the nerve cells in the brain is now widespread. At this point, usually a client requires full-time care, and for the family and the caregivers, this is the most difficult stage. People with severe Alzheimer's disease have difficulty walking. They often suffer complications from other illnesses such as pneumonia. Very often we see clients who do not recognize their family or friends, have the inability to perform any activities or daily living. They may be non-communicative. They may groan, mumble, speak gibberish, or not at all in this stage. So at this time, I'd like to ask you to do a little bit of critical thinking about the client in the late stage of Alzheimer's. So even though we know pneumonia is a frequent complication of Alzheimer's disease, what other complications could possibly occur? I'd like you to think about that, and when we get to class, I'll raise that question again in terms of conditions that may lead to death in clients with Alzheimer's. In planning and evaluating the care of the client with Alzheimer's disease, we can differentiate our outcomes by stage. So you could see that in the mild stage, we may be looking to effectively communicate with a client, whereas in the severe stage, our goal may simply be just for that client to make eye contact with us. This concludes the series of PowerPoints that I've prepared for the cognitive disorder, and I hope that by breaking them up into smaller bites, they were useful to you in helping you prepare and plan for our lecture. I will be looking for a little feedback when we come together in class, just to know whether this was beneficial to you or not. So I will see you in class and look forward to working with you.